This audio story is based on a widely discussed tale, purported to be true by several sources. The story has been embellished, and the names of the characters and places created or changed for entertainment purposes. On the 20th of December 2005 in the city of Indianapolis, police were called to a homicide scene in the suburb of Brownsburg. The body of a 10-year-old girl had been found in a park by a man walking his dog. The girl had been strangled, and her body left under a pile of leaves. Despite their best efforts, forensic evidence was inconclusive, and the case remained unsolved after the main suspect, a drifter named Benjamin Smith, provided a solid witness alibi. The brutal murder left the community shaken and the police baffled. The case was solved less than 6 months later in the most surprising of circumstances. The following is a narrative that tells the story of the unusual way this crime was solved.
Dr. Amanda Thompson, a renowned child psychiatrist, sat in her office reviewing the case file of her newest patient, 8-year-old Sophie. The girl had recently undergone a heart transplant and was now experiencing vivid, recurring nightmares of a murder, her own murder. As Dr. Thompson delved deeper into Sophie's dreams, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this case than met the eye. During their sessions, Sophie recounted the details of her dreams with a clarity that belied her young age. She described a man in a dark hoodie and jeans following and attacking her in a park and putting his hands around her throat. She tried to scream and would always wake from her nightmare, struggling for breath. Dr. Thompson agreed with Sophie's parents that there was something unusual about the intensity and repeated occurrences, now almost nightly, of the same nightmare. Dr. Thompson listened intently during each session, making notes about each new detail Sophie managed to remember, and tried to piece together the fragments of Sophie's subconscious into a rational explanation. As the sessions continued, Dr. Thompson became increasingly convinced that Sophie's dreams were more than just the product of a child's imagination. The details were too specific, too consistent. She had heard of cases where organ transplant recipients had reported experiencing memories or personality traits of their donors, but she had always been skeptical of such claims. Now, however, she found herself wondering if there might be some truth to the idea of cellular memory. Sophie's parents had not been given any details about the donor, except for the fact that they were 10 years old. Fascinated by the interactions with Sophie, after some research, Dr. Thompson located information about a recent homicide case in the neighboring state of Indiana that bore remarkable similarities to the details recounted by Sophie in their sessions. Not only that, the homicide occurred less than 48 hours before her patient's life-saving surgery, and Lily Granson, the victim, had been 10 years old. Detective James Parker, the lead investigator on Lily's murder, was at his wits' end. Months had passed since the crime, and he was no closer to finding the killer. He had followed every lead, interviewed every witness, and scoured every piece of evidence. But nothing seemed to point him in the right direction. That is, until he received a call from Dr. Thompson. The psychiatrist explained Sophie's situation, emphasizing the uncanny details the young girl had provided about the murder. Detective Parker was initially skeptical, but as Dr. Thompson shared more information, he couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. The details Sophie mentioned, such as the method of murder and the exact time of the crime, had never been made public. Intrigued, Detective Parker agreed to meet with Sophie and Dr. Thompson after the girl's parents gave permission. They were desperate for anything that would ease their daughter's recovery. As he listened to the young girl recount her dreams, he felt a chill run down his spine. The clarity and consistency of her descriptions were unnerving, and he knew he had to investigate further. Working together, Dr. Thompson and Detective Parker began to piece together the puzzle. They cross-referenced Sophie's dreams with the evidence from Lily's case, looking for any connections or discrepancies. Slowly but surely, a picture began to emerge. After confirming that the heart donor was indeed Lily Granson, Detective Parker and his team followed the leads provided by Sophie's dreams. One detail from her 7th session with Dr. Thompson was the fact that the man in Sophie's dream had a small but distinctive tattoo of a dagger on the back of his hand. Parker knew then that he had his man. Benjamin Smith, their prime suspect, had a tattoo that matched exactly the description provided by Sophie. Still, a girl's dream did not qualify as evidence in a criminal trial, so rather than pull Smith in for further questioning, he made a visit to the man who provided the alibi for the suspect. When confronted with this new information and advised of the penalties for being an accomplice to murder, the witness folded and confirmed that Benjamin Smith had confessed to him about the murder. This was enough to arrest Smith. The interrogation was intense, with Smith again denying any involvement in Lily's murder. But as Detective Parker presented the evidence, including the details from Sophie's dreams and the confession of his friend, Smith's facade began to crumble. He broke down, admitting to the heinous crime. "I didn't mean to," he moaned. "I just wanted to talk to her. But she had to go ahead and scream, didn't she?" Even though no details of the case could be discussed with Sophie and her parents, Dr. Thompson did discuss cellular memory with them and told them that there have been reports of heart transplant recipients experiencing changes in tastes, personality traits, and sometimes even memories that seem to have come from their donors. Her parents were skeptical, but during a later session with Sophie, Dr. Thompson told her, as she was leaving, that she'd heard that a man with a knife tattoo on his hand had been arrested for the murder of a girl. "Maybe it was your donor," she added as casually as possible. After this, Sophie's dreams began to change. The once vivid and terrifying visions of murder slowly faded, and Dr. Thompson observed the young girl's demeanor shift, the weight of her nightmares gradually lifting from her small shoulders. It was as though, the doctor said to Detective Parker in a final phone call, the heart of Lily was finally at peace.
The individual convicted of the murder of Lily Granson was sentenced to death and, to this day, remains on death row. Personality changes following heart transplants have been reported for decades and include accounts of recipients acquiring personality changes, including changes in food and entertainment preferences, changes in temperament, modifications of identity, and memories from the donor's life. What are your thoughts? We'd love to hear them in the comments section. If you're enjoying the audio stories on Shadow Bites, please like, subscribe, and share. It's the best way to help out the channel so we can bring you more content like this.